DIY. Shout out Idea Generation. They always provide some really super dope content. This one was really interesting in that they had an interview with DJ Premier. Legendary just feels like that's, I want to say it's an insult, but it is only a micro representation of what this man's influences has been on the culture of hip hop. What really got my interest was what he said towards the end of this interview, where he's talking about what keeps him constantly in the evolution, constantly growing as a music producer, and what keeps him motivated.
From the outside looking in, it felt like probably around 2015, your brand started activating in a much more deliberate and sort of consistent way. Obviously, you've had placements every year, for 30 years,
right.
But with merch drops and now doing the So What's Up video series and really sort of hitting different notes at different times, but with a consistent cadence. I'm curious, you're now 57 years old. What are the things that you want to accomplish?
That man look good for 57. Black don't crack.
In, the next chapter of your career?
I've always loved scoring. It's just a thing of mine that I've always wanted to do, just from watching movies. And man, the way they put that track right there, and I've done the breaks. Shout out to Dan Charnas for letting me steer that wheel. And I've done stuff for the Last OG with Tracy Morgan. He hit me up, I need you to do season 2. But I've always wanted to get to the motion picture level just because of all the old movies like the Mac soundtrack and Cleopatra Jones and Foxy Brown movie, and with Willie Hutz doing the whole album.
Isn't it interesting how someone as already accomplished as DJ Premier in many different eras of hip hop is still lining up things that he aspires to do at the age of 57? I highlight that only because I find that there's so many artists that are around my age, I'm late 30s, who start to feel like, well, maybe this is all this career is going to be. It's almost like a lot of folks that I come encounter with stop dreaming, or they stop stacking up goals to accomplish, or they make them so reachable that it doesn't really stretch them as it once did, and they attribute it immediately to wisdom. I think what's a really important piece here, as he's kind of uncovering what keeps him going at 57, is the fact that he's still lining up things that require a different evolution of DJ Premier. Even at this stage, even with a name like DJ Premier, who's able to walk in any room and just say, look, I'm Premier. I think that that's supremely important. Never stop stacking up goals.
It's a big dream of mine. And I always wanted to do a cartoon too, kind of based on our journey of how we live life as entertainers, since I could speak on it based off of everything, from the groupies to the drugs to everything.
A cartoon about the groupies and the drugs is crazy. I don't know what network you put that on, Adult Swim? Salute, OG. That's a crazy idea.
There's so many people that do it already, but I still know how to do it from a view where it's like, Preem's version is dope. I'm very into making sure if it's coming from me, it's got to be dope. So
in the last few years, collaborative albums between a single producer and a single MC have become sort of consistent wave. Do you have any ambition to do that kind of thing? And are there any artists that you have on your short list?
Yeah, I'm doing a few things now. I want to go back to just a one producer type of projects because, it's funny now when you go do an interview, they're like, yeah, so who all you got on your album?
So true is that when you see artists who have a new project out, their production credits looks like a who's who of whoever's hot at the time. You'll have like a Murder Beach, you'll have a Metro, you'll have just whoever is hot and relevant at that point in time. And that almost becomes another selling point for the project. Not necessarily what creates the most cohesive body of work, but just what's going to be newsworthy when somebody looks at the credits and they see names that are relevant to their experience, relevant to their fandom, and they say, oh, damn, you got a beef from so-and-so on there? Oh, I gotta definitely get this project. I think it's interesting though, the OGs right now that are winning, and I'm obviously not gonna mention every name, but immediately I think about DJ Premier and I think about The Alchemist and how they have not only stood the test of time by continuing to push their signature sound, but because they have a signature sound, there are artists who are newer and up and coming who will always know what they're getting when they align with these producers. I don't think it's by mistake. I think it's by design that the producers who have a sound that is their sound are able to translate to every single era of hip hop. There's always a need for the producer who has their own sound. The producers who are able to emulate different sounds and sounds of the time and keep up with the trends, they are sometimes a champion of the time and then also a victim of the time passing, because they weren't able to develop their voice, their sound. Things seem to be going back to that, especially when I see the one producer rapper combo like Currency and Harry Fraud, The Alchemist, Larry June. All of these things are just coming back to the core and the center of hip hop.
Back in our era, it wasn't that. It was just like, new album out, singles hot. We're gonna get into the second single. They never asked who all the producers you got and what features. Now that's always the number one thing.
I was gonna say that one thing that has really changed, obviously you are a man of vinyl, but we live in the streaming era. And to me, that's done so many interesting things, both in terms of taking all the barriers down so everyone can listen to everything. Anyone that wants to make music can get their stuff on the platform. Now, this happened 2 days ago. I was looking on Spotify and I looked at MF Doom's page. He has 5 records that have 100 million streams each. There's not one chorus between the 5 records.
Now, for all the things that we say positively and negatively about streaming on this platform, we've had many videos that you can go back and reference that really talk about the unfair nature of the pricing model for artists, and talk to a little bit of how the music quality is changing based upon playlisting. There are some pros, obviously, to streaming, the accessibility to music that otherwise, if you didn't have it in your collection, it would not be heard. The catalogs that are now revitalized because of people's interest and just because the way things are suggested once you go down a rabbit hole of music. But I do feel like there are still artists that are stuck in the middle where they're like, okay, this is cool, the accessibility is cool, but do I still need to make my music formulaic in order to be discovered, in order to be suggested to other people? Well, there's always an exception to the rule, and I'm not saying you should follow this, but I think it's interesting, as the host just said, that legendary MF Doom has 100 million streams on multiple projects that don't follow the formula of what a hit song is. There's no hooks on them. The instrumentation doesn't represent what you would think 100 million streamers, listeners of music, would want to tap into nowadays, but it breaks all of those rules. And I think that because it breaks those rules on that scale, that obviously has a domino effect that affects us as independent artists and music producers. So that's even more reason for you to put your damn music out.
This is such a beautiful and incredible time for music because there aren't rules anymore.
I love doing my radio show. I was on Sirius for a long time. Breaking records from the underground is the best.
I think that's also another key to really hammer home what we're talking about here. One of the keys to staying motivated for a DJ Premier at 57 years of age is the fact that he still has things that excited him as an early DJ, as an early music producer in breaking records. The fact that he now has a platform, an online radio show that allows him to do the very same thing that he did when he started. I think that has to be a huge key to what's keeping him motivated to continue to evolve, and also tapping into music from artists that he talks about a little bit further in that he doesn't even know. And when you're constantly creating as a producer, you already know the influence of having multiple places to pull inspiration from. Imagine what that does for a DJ Premier who's now be able to breathe in this fresh energy from breaking these records. As you continue to evolve in your career, do not forget the things that excited you in the very beginning that still spark an interest within you today. And I think a lot of us get away from those core values, those core motivators, because we're in search of something new and fresh, when those are the things that ultimately determine our initial why of why we chose to get into this.
Hearing all these records, like, what is that? What is that? And what is that? And you start looking for those records. And they usually already had them at the record store. You just didn't know until it got broken. And I'm going to start back up doing my thing because just breaking records is fun. And posting my list and people posting it on the gram going, yo, Preem played my record. I don't even know a lot of these people. But the record is good and I break it.
Do you have to work to keep that joy and that passion
that fan that was a young kid, that fan that was in junior high, that fan that was in high school, college, and finally got a record deal to do it the way we wanted to do it, and actually got successful doing it the way we said it should be done, like this, still that way. And I don't even wonder, like, damn, am I ever gonna stop loving it? I always say you can't outgrow a culture. That's why, when I'm like, damn, 57 and I'm still like about to cook up another one. It's fun. It's still fun. I love the challenge.
You can't ever stop being a fan of this culture. I think that the internet was a great introduction to many different points of views all over the world. It obviously landed platforms for a lot of content creators, like, for instance, like an Anthony Fantano, who through his love in studying of music, he's able to have a platform to review the music of other people. And he's able to give insight. Matter of fact, I get insight sometimes with the music that I'm already listening to about maybe why there's certain things that I attach to, but from a journalist's point of view. The flip side of that, though, is that sometimes when you're exposed to so many different opinions of the music that you're listening to via the internet, it's really easy to turn into a pessimistic listener. Even worse, it's even easier to turn into a pessimistic creator of music, an artist, a producer. And one thing I do not see a shortage of on Twitter, on Instagram, on any of these platforms is a shortage of opinions. People drop opinions more than they drop music. That's the era we're in. People will drop double disc, triple disc of opinions about why something doesn't sound good, about why someone is falling off, but they won't drop a song out of fear of the same ridicule. They become such terrible critics of everything else, and it makes it almost impossible for them to enjoy the creative process. So if there's a last key to all of this, I think DJ Premier gave it to us, in that you can never stop being a fan of this. And I think part of being a fan of the culture in general is being able to strip off that hat of judgment, that hat of criticism. Not that you shouldn't be listening with perceptive ears or aware ears of what's going on, but I think that judgment that we apply to other people's music inevitably comes back to our music, and it doesn't allow for those ideas to run freely. And when ideas don't run freely, we start to get into formulas so that we can consistently make music. But when you leave yourself the space to fail, when you leave yourself the space to just tell the stories as you see it. Someone said it today in a comment I was reading on my YouTube about a new video that's out, and they said it is so difficult to make music. And I thought to myself, why would it be difficult to make music? When was it difficult to make music? First of all, for me, was in the beginning. You know why it was very difficult for me? Two reasons primarily. One, there was a lack of experience because I didn't make enough songs. Two, it was because I wasn't telling the truth. Music is difficult to create. Music is difficult to maintain. Music is difficult to evolve at, no matter what age you're at, when you're not telling your truth. When you're trying to impress people by your ability to emulate whatever is hot, whatever people have their attention on, of course you're going to be frustrated because the person that you're taking from has a certain set of whys that don't match up to your whys. If I can leave all my DIYers with any advice, and it's something I'm always in constant pursuit of, launching your ideas, no matter how stupid they sound, no matter what age that you are, somebody has to be the first one to talk about the things that you're going to talk about at the age that you're at. Because if it's relevant to you, if it's truthful to you, if it helps you make it through whatever scenario that you're going to represent through music, it's indeed going to help someone else. So shout out DJ Premier for giving those gems. It's something that keeps me inspired as I start to approach 40. I'm about 2 more years away, but as I start to approach 40, it gives me new insight on how to stay fresh. Those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Stop being greedy. Peace.